vetoes it. I think he would say, as he has said, that his position has changed now because the Supreme Court had declared those of us who stand up for marriage between a man and woman to be discriminatory. And he doesn't want to discriminate, even to the extent of proposing a constitutional amendment. The Supreme Court also found that homosexuals, and this is a quote, homosexuals have a right to public affirmation, close quote. Now, so the courts are going to tell the public that we have to affirm their decision. Maybe they would say, well, public services like county recorders have to affirm it. And I'm not here to argue that county recorders should defy that decision. I'm not here to do that. But there are those down at the legislature every day lobbying the legislature. And I don't know that there are any that have a vote, but lobbying, that want to tell the county recorders, defy this decision, refuse to fill out any marriage licenses that are between a man and a woman. I don't think it gets us anywhere going down that path. I think in the end, you come back around the same circle, and Mueller vetoes it. I don't think you get county recorders to honor it, and in the end, you just haven't accomplished anything except the equivalent of like a kid breaking their toys and then saying, "Dad, my toys are broken. Buy me some new ones." Wouldn't work, would it? Say you broke your toys, you go without. And so what I think we do need the residency requirement. And the residency requirement just says we will not impose Iowa law on the rest of the country. UCLA has done a study, and they predict that this decision on the Supreme Court would result in, before we can amend our Constitution, would result in 58,000 same-sex marriages in Iowa. 55,000 of which would be out-of-staters coming to Iowa. The mecca of same-sex marriage, 55,000 of them. We can, with procedural ease, put an amendment on a whole number of different bills that have to go through the legislature. You have to get this session adjourned. That would limit this judge-made law to just Iowans instead of all of the other states. Now, there are two reasons why I think that's a good idea. There are a lot of other reasons, but the two main reasons are this. It would cut out 55,000 same-sex marriages that are imposed by judge-made law, and we wouldn't become the mecca of same-sex marriage, like a Las Vegas weekend coming to Iowa. And then the other thing that it would eliminate would be the proliferation of all the litigation that would come when they went back home and filed suits in their own states to try to get the courts to force their state of residents to recognize their same-sex marriage that took place in Iowa. That's why this is important. It can happen. We should get a vote on it. There also is some resistance to it because the people that are dug in against it are the conservatives on our side who are so ideological that they say that if you do that, you've ratified the Supreme Court decision. But they don't have any problem going back to restate DOMA. They don't have any problem with all the debate that's taking place on the constitutional amendment. I'll say it's already been ratified by the debate and the acknowledgement that's there. And I don't want to do unto my brothers what the Supreme Court of the state of Iowa has done unto us Iowans. And so I'm going to continue to push hard for a residency requirement. And of course, and so those are that's the once through on that part. And I think maybe it might be a good place for me to finally stop for a breath and start to listen, because that's also an important component of this meeting today. So whoever wants to speak or question, yes ma'am, I'll come back to you now.
Well, all civilized nations in the world accept man and woman, marriage between man and woman. And when you stated that about this money that our state plans to make, $5 billion that these sex marriage, homosexual marriages are supposed to do, they should realize that with each AIDS person that was in 2006, each one cost $600,000 to the medical health system. So in the end, we're definitely not going to benefit there. And along with it, the unnatural, immoral, disease-prone, and legalized child abuse homes and other organizations such as Boy Scouts and in Massachusetts, the Catholic Charities had to close their adoption agencies because they chose not to give children to gay couples.
Thank you. You've covered a lot of territory with that statement, and not going down through it piece by piece, most of which I understand it all, and most of which I agree with. I won't take issue with any of it. I just think that we all have to draw those values ourselves, and it comes from our churches and our families and our communities. What's right and what's wrong, what's natural law. And another thing that comes from this is that our law is built on, the law we have today is built on natural law, God-given law. Natural law, as we see flow through our Declaration of Independence, and that emerges in our Constitution. And then another foundation of it is common law, Old English common law. Those are the two foundations for law. I had Justice Scalia as a guest for breakfast 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he talked about how now the judiciary branch has started to come up with this, for the last 30 or 40 years, it's been an ever-increasing part of human rights. They are creating these things that they see up in the sky that are human rights, not natural law and not English common law, but human rights that they define. Their extrasensory perception find the rights that were heretofore unimaginable. That's what's going on here. They're creating these rights. Now, I think it's wrong from a moral standpoint. I think it's wrong from a health standpoint. I think it's wrong for a society to ratify a relationship that's not constructive to the overall good of the overall society. I think all the individuals involved in this, though, that's for them. I'm not passing judgment on them. That's between them and God. But I think we have a right as a society to set these standards, not the judges. And if our standards reflect our religious and our moral values and our fiscal values and our medical evidence values, they should. That's part of that equation. That's part of the debate. And I'm standing on the ground of this Supreme Court way overreached, and then I disagree with the policy that and I really disagree with their decision. That's probably, I'll get more to say, but I stop there. Doc?
Well, what about, doesn't the Supreme Court have to be affirmed in an election of the people?
They have a retention ballot every 6 years, and that there are three
How
of
many
them.
of them have?
Pardon me?
How many of them have to stand for retention every 6 years?
And in sequence of their appointments, all of them. But there are 3 of them that are up for retention ballot in 2010. So it's a pretty good sized piece of the overall 7 Supreme Court justices. And I haven't talked about that because I think we've got so much energy we need to put into the amendment and into the residency requirement. But that's a discussion that will come up, and we'll all have to make our own decision on what to do. I think you know where I'll vote. I'll vote no on every one of them. Because every one of them circled their wagons and came out with an extra constitutional.
What do they have to have? Do they just have to have a majority to be retained?
Simple majority. And the history of unseating Supreme Court justices is really tough. But and they have. But we'll see how that one goes. I just say let's pass the residency requirement now. Let's push this constitutional amendment hard. We've got a lot of work to do, and it's going to take a concerted effort.